All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. It is the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is Monday. Over, under, reactions. Monday, June 10th, 8:04 a.m. Let's get it rolling. Good morning, Chef. What's happening?
Good morning. Nothing much is happening on this end.
So, don't know when Eric's getting back. I haven't heard from him. I'm wondering if he's on his way back from Vegas. Looks like he's had a great time out there. So I'll touch base with Eric hopefully today at some point, see which day he's able to rejoin us here on the morning show. But right now we've got Chef. And Chef, we're going to do some over-under conversation this morning. And then I'm going to get into the top 10 teams in June. So I came across Rich Eisen's episode the other day. And I thought it was interesting, thinking about the top 10 teams, Super Bowl type, quality teams potentially in June. Like it's way too early, right? I guess that's why his segment is called like the way too early predictions in June or something like that. But anyway, we'll get into that. We'll see what PFF had to say. And then I guess you guys are going to see what we have to say. So let's kick it off with some over under. I'll let you go first.
So I just want to take it back old school. I want to bring y'all back in time to a time when the Lions were good. Well, that was the last time the Lions were good. They're good now. All right. So let's get into this. Over under. And I think later what we'll do, Will, is we'll get the chat involved and ask them some over under questions a little bit. But my over under question for you, first and foremost, 2014 Detroit Lions.
Great team.
42 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
Over under with this current iteration of the Detroit Lions. More sacks, less sacks.
So I think I went over this one the other day to a degree, talking about the 14 team, because when you look at that team and you look at that era of football, like they were multiplex across that defensive front, right? They had so many different options. You didn't have like one player that was getting all the sacks. You had quite a few players that were kind of getting their hands involved, right? I call it getting their hand in the cookie jar. And it was a different type of defense because you had a really good DB room and they were pretty stout. Like, I mean, they created, some good turnovers, but at the same time, a lot of interceptions that year. But sacks were not something that were necessarily needed at times because they were able to force the quarterback out through the middle, and Ndamukong Suh, Nick Fairley doing their job and, cleaning it up on the edge. So I think the Lions had 41 this last season. Is that correct? That's around there, yeah. And that was, it wasn't the greatest, but at the same time, I don't think sacks are everything either, to Dan Campbell's point. But I am going to go with the over. This year. I think that we get some more coverage sacks, which are great to have. I mean, that shows the ability of our DBs to be able to hold down the fort and allow somebody to get home. So I'm going to go with the over on this.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go with the over on this because, as we said, it was amazing that we got 41 sacks last year. We had two highlight players, and then we just had a bunch of other guys. So I'm going to go with the over. I'm going to go in the 50s. That's my prediction.
Ooh, that's a lot. I don't know if I'm going to go that high. I'll wait. I think I'll wait to see what happens in training camp. The biggest question is DJ Reader right now. If DJ Reader is not ready to go week one, I do believe that will have a profound impact on this defense because essentially we're kind of the same defense that we were last season minus the backfield, right? I think that does make a huge difference for this team. But without DJ Reader, I do believe some of the sack numbers will probably be a little bit lighter only because we don't have as much interior pressure. I guess it depends on who steps up. So, if Broderick Martin, really comes alive in training camp, hey, that could change things. He's learning a lot. DJ Reader's been attached to his hip and teaching him a lot. So we just don't know who he's going to be just yet. Let me shout out the chat real quick before I forget. Good morning to everybody in the chat. Hey, there's Eric Rintamaki still in Vegas. Man, that's early, dude. It's like 5 a.m. in Vegas right now. Go to bed. Or did you not go to sleep yet? Elizabeth LaValle, good morning. Tracy's in the house, of course. We got Rick. Who else is in here? We got Mike P. Derek W. Michael Garrity. Hey, you found show number 2, Michael. Welcome in today. Elizabeth LaValle again. Roger Chappis. King SJ all the way from Toronto. And who else is in the house? I think that's it. But we got a couple of over, and over. So Mike P says over. Rick says over. Elizabeth LaValle says over. Tracy says over. And Matt Verville says found it. You must have found the show this morning. Welcome in, Matt. Appreciate you joining the show this morning. All right. What's up next for you? I got a few of them myself, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to try to finish some work that I'm doing on the big segment. And then we'll get into mine here just before we talk about the top 10.
So the next one, as you talked about, the secondary room. So Glover Quinn was the leader of interceptions with 7.
Yep.
Will we have a player in our secondary over under?
Oh, so the question is, will we have a DB, whether that be a safety or a corner, that has 7 interceptions or more or less?
Yes. Well, I mean, they're definitely going to have less. But do you think anyone will have more?
I'm going to have to go with the under. I don't think that we're going to have one player with 7 or more interceptions. That's a lot. I don't even know the last player that's had more than 5. Like, who's had more than 5 interceptions recently? Can you think of anybody?
Didn't Quandre Diggs have 6?
I think he did, but how long ago are we talking?
I mean, we're just going back to where we can go to. we haven't had defense in quite some time. So
no, I'm talking about overall in the NFL period. Like,
in the NFL, Bland had 6 pick sixes last year.
Who did?
Deron Bland.
From the Cowboys.
Yeah.
He had 6 pick sixes?
Yes.
How did I miss that?
He set the record.
Okay, so he had 6. He didn't have 7. So who before him?
Did he have 8 interceptions last season?
I don't know.
Let me see.
If he had 8, that's insane. He had 9. Holy cow.
Yeah, 9.
That's a freaking ton.
Yeah, and 6 of them were pick sixes.
Yeah, obviously that's, not happening very often. So incredible season. Here's a question. How many picks did he have against Jared Goff? 0. I don't think he had any
interception.
I don't think we threw one that game, did we?
We did. We threw one in the 4th quarter. And I remember Jared Goff going, "Oh, no." And then Mike McCarthy's clock management allowed us to get the ball back.
Oh, we actually threw 2 interceptions that game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think one of them went to him, though. I hope they didn't. Well, anyway, moving on here. So I've got the under. What do you have? Looks like everyone in the chat's got the under too. Good morning.
I'm gonna go under, unless Kirby Joseph decides that he needs to get 7 or 8 to prove PFF wrong. Yeah, but I'm gonna go under.
I mean, here's what I will say. There's been some predictions that have come out thanks to Adam Schefter, GPT. He's doing some amazing work right now. And he how many pick interception or how many interceptions did he predict for Terry and Arnold? Do we know yet?
I don't know. I think he's going to talk about that. My sources say he'll probably talk about that today or tomorrow. So we'll keep our eyes glued.
Yeah, you got to check that out on the Rock Down Detroit Lions Facebook page, and then there's a new Twitter that's popping up with and by Adam Schefter. So and that's ATOM Schefter. So you guys are gonna have to check it out. But I'm gonna go that Terry and Arnold will end up being an interception leader at some time within the first 3 seasons with the Detroit Lions. I think that he's gonna end up being an interception leader at least in 1 season. I have no doubt in my mind that this guy's going to get his hands all over the football, and he's going to be exciting to watch. First season, I don't know. I think that we're going to have more interceptions, obviously, this year than we did last season. I think that we're going to bait guys into throwing picks, and we've already seen it. With Jack Campbell, he's really surprised and turned some heads this camp already with his ability to, mask and hide and kind of bait Jared Goff into throwing a bad throw. To do that against one of the smartest quarterbacks, I can't wait to do it against some of the other quarterbacks in the NFL, like Jordan Love, even Dak Prescott. I mean, these guys love to throw picks. So it should be an interesting couple of games between those two teams.
Caleb Williams. Don't forget Caleb Williams, though.
Caleb, yeah, he's going to be an interesting one to watch this year, isn't he?
He loves to throw picks too.
What did he throw? Like 19 interceptions or something last year in his last year?
I think 15 and with couple with 5 fumbles lost.
Does he have small hands?
I don't know. Someone that said that they watched a bunch of USC football said that he just has this thing where he'll just run with the ball and fumble. So I don't know if he has small hands or not, but he's just not. He's not careful with the football, apparently.
Well, let's hope that continues this year. Rick says if Terrion is as good as expected, he won't get targeted very often. 3 picks will have QBs looking for other options or throwing the ball away. Great assessment, Rick, and I could get in bed with that statement too. I mean, if Terrion does show, his ability early, yeah, you are going to have teams that aren't going to want to throw his way, and maybe that's where we do see a shift. If teams are not wanting to target Terrion, which they've seen with Sauce Gardner, early in his first season, teams didn't want to throw at him. That's why he had such a good season, because his stats were a little bit inflated from not getting targeted. And that could happen to Terrion, but if he's following around the number 2 wide receiver most of the season, then he's going to have to get targeted at some point. I don't think that Carlton Davis is going to allow a lot either. I think that if he continues to play the way that he's played the last couple seasons, this might be the most lockdown secondary we've ever had. And yes, that means that it could beat out that 2014 team if they really show up. So we'll see what happens. What's up next?
Well, the next, we're keeping with the defense. DeAndre Levy was the tackle leader that season. He had 151 tackles.
Jeez.
Do you believe that Alex Anzalone or Jack Campbell will eclipse this mark?
No way. That's a ton of tackles. I think the most that Alex Anzalone has had since he's been a Lion is like 120, somewhere in that range, 129. And that's a ton. And that's playing like every snap. So, yeah, I'm going to go no. Definitely on the under. I don't think that anyone's going to break that tackle record with DeAndre Levy there.
Yeah, I will go under as well, especially because you said playing every snap. That was what DeAndre Levy did, and now we're talking about kind of having Alex Anzalone and Jack Campbell on the field at the same time. So there's only so many tackles that can go around. So I'm going to go with the under on that one as well.
You almost got to pick your poison, man. Which one do you want to run at? Do you want to run at Jack or do you want to run at Anzalone? You run at the other side, you're going to run into Aiden Hutchinson. I mean, it's a good problem to have where your team can share in the statistics, the glory of the stats. That's why, playing unselfish football is so important. Who cares who gets the stat? I mean, yeah, it's great at the end of the day that you got some stat lines, but that W is the most important thing. So I really just want to see unselfish football, and that these guys don't really care who gets the stat, that they all perform well together. That's what's going to win games. And if you start becoming selfish, which I don't think any of these guys have shown that they're selfish at all, that's when you start to lose games. Dan Campbell made a very good point the other day when the question was asked about contracts and does he feel like players are different in contract years? He kind of said something to the point where, not our guys. Like he would hope that our guys are not like that they're going to play different, act different, be different in a contract year. Like they play year to year anyway. They should be going as hard as they can every single season. But if they're any different than that, if a contract year is any different than that, then maybe they don't have the right guys. Or if any guys are going to, not be mature about being in a contract season or hold out in a contract season, then they don't have the right guys. And they feel like they've done a very good job since day one of drafting these players, that they have the right guys. They're not worried about sending Alim McNeill into this season without a new contract. So not that a contract won't get done. I mean, there's still the option that it could get done this year, but we might see Alim McNeill play without a contract this entire season. And his hope and his plan is that it doesn't affect Alim. It's just going to drive him that much harder to want to play for that big money bag next year. So any thoughts on that? What do you think about the fact that, some contract years for players is the make or break year, but I'd say for all players, it's a make or break year, but some players, they act differently. They become different people. They hold out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a really strange phenomenon that they have a name for. It was the contract year bump. And I feel like it's strange on both parts. I feel like it's strange for the teams and it's strange for the players, because when you take a player that's had 3-4 years in the league, right? And then now it's time for his contract. And his stats have been, let's say, pedestrian. And then he just bursts onto the scene in his contract year. And then another team goes and throws down big money on this guy that didn't really produce the first 3 or 4 years of his contract. It's crazy to me. Right? It's like you're getting paid. You're a billionaire now, and you're allowing this decision to be made. It's like when your kid, like everybody has kids, right? The room is never clean until they want something, right? And then that thing is spotless. The floors are sparkling. The kid didn't change. He just wanted something, right? And after you give it to him, then the room is trashed again. It's a similar situation to me. So I just think it's really, really strange for that to happen in sports.
Yeah. I mean, it's the what have you done for me lately kind of league. So I mean, I guess it happens on both sides, right? I mean, the teams treat their players, some teams treat their players as the what have you done for me lately contract, and some teams respect their players and have open conversations and dialogue with them that just say, hey, look, you get out what you put in. You play hard, you play to win, and you're going to get paid like a winner. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't expect any drop from Alim McNeill at all. I think that this is going to be a great season for Alim, especially next to DJ Reader. And, like you've seen other players that have played around DJ Reader that have had incredible seasons. And I don't see why that wouldn't continue this year. For some of the Detroit Lions that are going to be kind of living behind DJ Reader's wake, if you will.
That's a perfect segue into, I'll make this my last one if you want to go ahead.
Yeah.
But perfect segue. Ndamukong Suh in 2014 had 8.5 sacks. Over under for Alim McNeill.
Wow. So Alim the Dream had what 6 or 5 last year?
5. And missed
for him
games.
For him to almost double up his sack total this year would require a lot. I'd say it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Anything is possible. If DJ Reader's in the entire season, let's say he starts week 4 and plays the rest of the season, I would still say it's possible. But something tells me, like I said earlier, I think that you're going to have more hands in the cookie jar. I think that it's going to be a little bit more spread out. I do believe that we're going to have a lot more interior pressure, but I'm going to go with the under on Alim McNeill getting 8.5 sacks, but it's not by much. I'm going to give him 7. I think that if he gets 7 sacks this year, that's a phenomenal year for Alim McNeill. That's a phenomenal year for any interior defensive lineman. So I'm going to go with 7. I'm going to go on the under.
I was going to go over, but then as you started talking, I started thinking about one guy who wasn't there last year, who will be cherry picking those sacks on the other side of Alim McNeill, and that is James Houston. So I believe, because obviously you're going to have DJ Reader being double teamed, which is going to free up Alim McNeill. We all know James Houston can win one-on-ones. So I feel like he's going to be getting some of those sacks, obviously, because he's going to get to the quarterback faster than Alim McNeill. So I'm going to agree with you. I would say I'm just going to go slightly under, though. I'm just going to go with 8 because he did miss 4 games last season. So if he misses no games, I'm going to go with 8.
That's still a phenomenal year, man. That'd be incredible for Alim McNeill. We couldn't ask for any more than that, to be honest with you. I think that it would be extremely fun to watch too, especially, with Aiden Hutchinson this year. Should have his best season yet. He's stayed pretty healthy his entire career. I'm expecting that's going to continue this year. And I think that this is a big season for Aiden. I don't think that the sacks matter as much as his performance on the field. I think with the Alim McNeill problem that's going to be on the field with James Houston and now, Aiden Hutchinson and then DJ Reader thrown into the mix, it's going to be an exciting defense to watch. Like, we're going to be expecting something wild and crazy to happen on third down. Like, we're just going to expect it. I think it's going to be one of those seasons where you have confidence going into third down and you don't, have the dread anymore of, like last year, I kind of just lost the dread as we kept going. Like you get to those positions in the game and you're like, oh, here we go again. I didn't have that last year. Like, I had an abundance of confidence for the first time ever. Like, I just knew this is going to happen. They're going to do this. They're going to make the stop, or this is going to happen on offense. And it did. And it was fun to watch, man. It was such an enlightening season as a Lions fan. So I'm going to apologize. I haven't been able to finish, what I'm doing here, but I will roll with it. Some of the information that is in here, I might have to verify after the show, but I did pull some information off the web and I haven't been able to verify all of it. So if there is some information in this next segment after I do some over-unders, I apologize. But it's the theme of it. Go ahead.
Before you get in to yours, I just want to piggyback off what you said.
Sure.
And I just want to amend a little bit of what you said. I lost the dread as well, except when it was third in a million. When it was third in a million, okay? It was third in a million. For some reason, we could not get off the field. So I think in situations where it's third in a million this year and you got all those guys coming at the quarterback, I think they'll be able to get off the field. So that's all I wanted to put in there.
Yeah, I guess, I try to forget about that situation. The third and long, even some fourth and longs, man, like they blew it. And I think they blew it because they were way too aggressive. And there was actually a really good point Mike Florio had the other day, caught him while I was driving. And he said, Dan Campbell, for all of the things that he does right, he did one thing extremely wrong last year. And that was managing the easiest part of the game. And he was talking about the NFC title game. But if you take that NFC title game and you transplant it to our losses, not so much the Ravens because that was a complete blowout. But if you look at some of the losses that we had, or, some of the games that kind of just went south or got real tight at the end, the Chargers being a good example, you got a good lead and you kind of give it up. They mismanaged the easiest part of the game. And the easiest part of the game was just holding on to a big lead. So the NFC title game, you're up by 17 points. You've got 30 minutes to go. Why were you so aggressive? All you had to do is manage the game. You just had to stay in front of the players and in front of the football. Don't get your backs turned. You could have went to prevent defense probably the entire second half. Played a little more aggressive, like up a little bit more on the ball, but you get what I'm saying, right? You could have went dime. You could have went heavy dime, big DB packages in because you knew that they were going to pass. And if they didn't pass, you had enough DBs to stop the run. And they didn't. They went full on aggressive. And I think that at some point, Dan Campbell has to this season interject into AG. Listen, at some point, you can't be the player on the field anymore. You can't be aggressive. You just have to manage what's in front of you to win the game. And I think that was the only downfall. If I could really pick one last year on Dan Campbell, that was probably the only downfall of his coaching. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know how much more perfect the season could have been for us. I mean, even the losses, they were good losses minus the Ravens game. And I don't want to see them get in that situation this year where they get too aggressive again. And, you know, to be honest with you, I think that Dan Campbell learned, you know, it was another season. He's got to learn too. But man, 3 years in, we're already talking Super Bowl opportunity, and nobody ever thought we would have been there. We were probably already thinking in 2021, all right, what time do we get our new coach? You know, we're already through a couple of seasons. When do we get our new coach? And that almost happened, you know. I mean, the fans just let loose on Dan Campbell. You know, and by the way, shout out to Sheila Ham. One of the Michiganians of the year in 2023. Michiganders is what it should say. I don't know why it says Michiganians. But she's debate. It's a debate. I don't think there's a debate. It's always been Michiganders.
So I was looking because I'm the person that thinks it should be Michiganian. It just seems like it sounds more, I don't know. Je ne sais quoi. I don't know. But it's apparently Michigander is thought of by some people as a pejorative because of the way that it was, like the way that it came about. I didn't really get into how it came about, but so some people think it's a pejorative and some people think that it's not at all. Like there's no harm in it or whatever. So I don't know. It's both. Like some people say Michiganian and some people say Michigander.
Well, I'd lie if I said that I knew what the history was, but I don't know what the history is with Michigander. It's just something I grew up with. It's always been Michigander ever since we were little. You know, it's just what they called us. I don't know what the full history is though.
Yeah. I didn't click on it.
So anyway, shout out to Sheila Hamp. What an excellent job. And being, you know, 2023 Woman of the Year in Michigan. Man, should be Woman of the Year in the NFL too. Owner of the Year, something. I mean, there's got to be awards for these people. I think it's somewhere. I don't know, but if there's one person that really deserves it, it is her. And they've done an excellent job over there in Allen Park, and I believe it will continue. The one thing that I will say is she's very firm on how this team is supposed to be led, and the things that they believe in as a team. The decision to cut Cam Sutton immediately was the exact right decision, and I'm glad that they stood by their hardened values in morals and ethics on who their players should be. I think that was an excellent testament to what they believe in. And even though he's got his second chance in the NFL, which is crazy to me, you know, the Lions at least stood fast on what they believe in. So I'm all good with that. Peter Van Larhoven says, Alim's get those sack numbers. We won't be able to afford his services going forward. I think we'll be able to. To your point, we've got $40.345 million in cap this year, and that number will be into the 60s. If that number were to stay left alone this year, the Lions will be well into the 60s to start next season, which is eerily similar to what we started with this year. And we just signed 3 massive deals. So projecting what we're going to have to start the season with next year, there's no reason why we couldn't re-sign Alim McNeill. I don't think that he's going to get a break the bank type of contract. I think he'll be in the upper third, but I don't think that he's going to be in the top tier at all. He's played well. I mean, if he does get 8.5 or more sacks this season, then yeah, you probably could make an argument that he could break the bank. But I think that we should be able to afford him next year without a problem. Peter Van Larhoven also says we have to do something with Decker. But hey, there's always a chance when it comes to Brad and MCDC. So I think that Decker has been in conversation with an extension with the Lions. I'm not sure what the details are there, but there was some conversation about it about a month ago. And I believe Decker even spoke to it during some media event that there's been conversations, and that's all that he'll speak to about that. Tracy says Sheila has done the best out of all the owners of the Lions for the team. Yeah, it just took the daughter of the original owner to get it done. That's what it took. Took a woman's touch, right? No, there's some pretty intelligent and amazing women in the sport, in all sports, to be honest with you. And they just don't get their moment to shine enough. And she's done an excellent job. So anything you want to add to that? And I'll finish with my few over-unders.
I'm just going to say shout out to women, man. You know, shout out to women.
Yeah, without them, nobody's here, right?
Exactly.
All right. So here's my first over-under of the day. Pro Bowl. So there's been some early conversation on Pro Bowl, and I know that people don't care about Pro Bowl as much, but it still has some meaning to the players to be selected to the Pro Bowl. Nobody really cares about the games anymore. I mean, it's more of just a fun-filled event. I mean, it's kind of fun to watch, but it doesn't have the same meaning. If you grew up with football since the 80s, like I did, the Pro Bowl was different back then. I mean, they used to knock the crap out of each other. It was another game. And then people started realizing, wait a second, you're getting my players injured, and we can't have players injured in a Pro Bowl. This is a meaningless game. We're not even really making any money from this game. So no, we've got to do something about it. So they changed the scenario, right? They changed how the Pro Bowl is done. But I still think that there's some value into being selected to the Pro Bowl. Obviously, the top tier is the All-Pro selection. But how many Detroit Lions are selected to the Pro Bowl this year? Over or under on 4? I was going to go with over under 3, but I can see 4 players making this Pro Bowl selection and might even get a couple more All-Pros. What's up, Bucky? Good morning, man.
I'm going to go over. You're going to go over. So you think four or more are going to be selected to the Pro Bowl this year? We easily have 3 on the offense.
So we're going to get some defensive players added to the Pro Bowl, you think? Okay.
Yes.
It's hard for me to go on the over with this one. If the Lions have a very similar season to what they did last year, I do believe that there should be more selected. I think our only problem is it's the area in which we live, right? Yeah. How many New York players get drafted or, get selected, and how many, in Chicago, you got bigger markets that are driving, these players to the Pro Bowl because of the fan voting. I think that's our only hindrance with getting players into the Pro Bowl. I wish that they would change the Pro Bowl to be this. Let it be a fan vote for like 2 of the positions on, let's say there's 6 players from each position that make it. I don't know the number, but let's just say it's 6. Well, the fans should be able to vote 2 of the players in, but the other, first 4 players should be voted in by the press or, some other way, or maybe internally voted on by the players, or all 3. You should have a component of all 3 and make it, unilaterally a little bit more even, if you will. Give everybody an opportunity, but having 100% fan vote, I think that kind of skews the numbers because, you got 20 million people in New York or whatever it is, all voting for their team. It's, why would Aaron Rodgers make a Pro Bowl? I could imagine if he made a Pro Bowl last year, with a busted Achilles, it probably could have happened. So anyway, next one, I'm going to go with the under on this one, just because of fan voting. How many division wins will the Lions have in 2024? So obviously there's an opportunity to have plus or minus 5. Over under on 5. Here's where I'm going. Over under 5 division wins.
I'm going to go under because I have picked them to split. And the more I hear about Caleb Williams, I'm regretting picking them to split with the Bears. But I have them splitting with the Packers and the Bears. And
so you got to split with the Packers and the Bears. Yeah. So that's 2-2, and then you have a sweep of the Vikings.
Yeah.
So that's 4-2.
Yeah.
So this is again a hard one for me because I think we're right at 5. So I'm going to go on the under as well, but I'm going to say we're right at 5. I think we only lose one division game. And quite honestly, if I can't remember the schedule where it lines up, who do we play last?
We play the Bears last.
Yeah.
In Chicago.
Yep. One of the games that we're trying to go to here. So you've got the Vikings at the Lions, January 5th.
Oh, yeah, that's the last one.
And then you've got the Lions at the Bears December 22nd. So I feel like that January 5th game might be meaningless for the Lions. I'm hoping that the Bears game is meaningless for the Lions. I hope that we locked it up before that. But assuming that Vikings game, the last game at home, see, the Lions are not going to lose at home. So I'm right at 5. If we have one loss, it probably would be to the Packers. I don't think that we would lose to the Bears, the Vikings.
Yeah. Like I said, I want to change my prediction, but I got 13-4 for the season, and it's just hard to find. It was hard to find 4 losses, so that's where the Chicago split came up.
That's right where I'm at too. Is this 13-4 for my early predictions before training camp and before preseason? That's where I was too. Is 13-4. All right, so Lions have 9 home games this season. Over under 7 wins at home.
Over.
All right, who do we lose to? That's the question, right? Who are we going to lose to at home? So here's our home schedule. We have the Rams week 1. That's a win.
Boo them kids.
We have We have the Buccaneers at home. That's a win. We have the Seahawks again at home. That's going to be a win.
Yeah. Pete Carroll's not in the mix.
We have the Titans at home. That could be a tough game. Potentially. We'll see what happens through training camp with the Titans. And then we have the Jaguars at home. That's a win. You also have the Bears and the Packers back-to-back at home. And that's going to be a win and a win. Yeah, I mean, you got the Bills at home. That could be our only loss.
So here's the thing about the Packers. I think with the Bears and the Packers back-to-back, I think that is one of those situations where we have is it 2 games in 11 days or something like that?
3.
Or was it 3 games? Yeah, 3 games in 11 days, which is the same thing that we went through last season. When we lost to the Packers at home.
Yep.
So that's one to keep your eye on.
Yeah, so we go Lions at Colts on the 24th. And then we go Bears at Lions on the 28th. I believe that's the Thanksgiving Day game. And then you have the Packers on December 5th. So you have 4 days of rest between the Colts and the Bears, just like last season. And then you have another 4 days. No, 7 days rest between the Bears and the Packers. So we actually have 7 days of rest. So that does help.
Last time, because they were the Thanksgiving game last time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, they were. So, what's odd though is if you actually go back an extra week, so you've got November 17th to November 24th. So you've got 7, then 4, and then 7. So you actually have 4 games in 18 days.
That's tough.
And they talk about player safety like it matters. Come on, NFL, do better. You know what? I think this year, at some point, I'm going to put together a schedule. Now, I understand. I listened to an episode. Can't remember the guy that is in charge of doing the schedule for the NFL, but they got this whole team. They send everything to Goodell. He either approves it or doesn't approve it. Now, there's a lot of things that we have to take into account here with the schedule, right? So some stadiums have events booked, unfortunately, the Taylor Swift tour and all this other stuff going on. And they have to take into account that some of these stadiums are actually not open for some, game opportunities. Here's my pledge to the NFL. Hey, tell your teams that the most important 18 weeks of the year is when the schedule is released, and don't book anything during those 18 weeks. Book it after the schedule comes out. The schedule comes out, a month ago. Why can't you fill the stadium, post the schedule release, May 15th or whatever it was this year, and then start filling your schedule for any tour stops. Just put TBD on it on a few dates, TBD, just like you do for the NFL schedule. But don't book anything. That would make it that much easier for them to get the schedule in line and make more sense. Does that make more sense to you or no?
You're still going to make your money.
Yeah, of course they will.
You're not asking them not to make their money. You're not going, hey, don't schedule anything during the season. Just wait. So we can get, as you said, player safety, right? So
if it means that much to them.
Yeah, if we don't have 4 games in 18 days and things like this. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense, man. Just wait. I understand that, Taylor Swift has her tours and,
she's a billionaire. I don't think that she's going to miss, any money here. I think she's pretty well set for, I don't know, probably 10 generations of her family.
Probably.
So the last one here, the Lions went for it on 4th down 40 times last year. Interesting stat. The Panthers went for it 48 times on 4th down. The difference is, in our pre-talk conversation before the show, the difference was this: the Lions were a good team going for it. The Panthers were trash, just trying to make some hay on a rainy day and get a win. That's the difference as to why they went for it more on 4th down. But the Lions clearly went for it the most for a team that was winning 40 times in 2023, over under. The Lions go for it more than 40 times in 2024.
I'm going to go under.
Explain yourself.
The reason that I believe that we're going to go under is because we're all expecting this offense to be even more explosive, even more potent than it was last season. We're predicting all these numbers. J-Mo getting 800 yards and 400 yards on the ground, and Amon-Ra getting 1,600, and all these people just getting all these extra yards. So I think the opportunities for 4th downs is going to be less. I don't think we're going to face as many 4th downs. So that's why I believe that we will go for it less than 40 times. And then also, as we were talking about, Dan Campbell learning, right? Here's the thing. In the regular season, the situations matter as far as, seeding for the postseason. But I believe that where his learning will have come into play is probably in the postseason, right? I don't think that he'll be in a situation where we'll have a large halftime lead and he'll see some of the, similar things start happening and he'll just do it the same way. I think then that's when he will learn. But during the regular season, I still don't believe that we're going to have as many opportunities for 4th downs because of this offense. So that's why I'm going to go with the under.
All of that makes great sense. It all makes great sense. Dan Campbell learning, the Lions offense being a little bit different, but let's hear from the guy that makes the decisions, Jared Goff. So Jared, can you tell us how many times are the Lions going to go for it on 4th down in 2024 and why? Okay. All right. And thank you for your time this morning. So Jared said,
I couldn't hear him.
Yeah, you know how it is in Detroit, man. They never have the mics turned up on the reporters. Unfortunately, this mic is off. So Jared said this basically, I can't tell you. I have no idea. It just depends on what Dan Campbell had that morning for breakfast. We'll determine on whether or not we're going to go for it on 4th down. So I guess we'll pay attention as the season comes out. I'm going to go on the under as well. And it's kind of the same situation as to what you pointed out. I think that Dan Campbell has learned a little bit. I don't think that this is a trust factor with a kicker. I don't think that a kicker changes Dan Campbell's mind. I just feel like the Lions are going to be in a different type of a situation this year because of the defense more than the offense. So you kind of went for the offense a little bit, right? I'm going the defensive side of the ball because I look at it this way. He's going to have more confidence that his defense is going to get a stop. And if he has that confidence, and if truly, if the defense is better this year, then why would you have to go for it as often? Now, if the game is close, right? If you're just trying to close the door, yeah, there could be a reason to go for it on fourth down, depending on where you are. But do I think that Dan Campbell's going to be going for it on our own 30, like he did last year to open up the game? No, I don't. I think that he's going to have more patience and reverence with understanding what the defense is going to be able to do. And I think that that's going to become more apparent as we get through the first few games. So he'll be able to decide then, do I really need to pull out the bag of tricks as often, or can I trust my defense to go win this game for us? So I'm going to go on the under, and I feel like the defense is a big reason why. So next up, we've got top 10. Now, this was a great segment by Rich Eisen. Caught this was yesterday or the day before, and I thought they did an excellent job on it. I don't know exactly where I am on this list. I mean, I'm actually kind of cool with what he predicted, except for a couple of teams that just didn't make much sense to me. So first, I'm going to start with PFF. PFF has the top 10 as this: Bills at 10, Cowboys at 9, Bengals at 8, Texans at 7, Lions at 6, Ravens at 5, the Jets at 4, the Eagles at 3, the Chiefs at 2, the 49ers at 1. So based on PFF, yeah, I've got a lot to talk about here just on that. The PFF, man, they're out of their mind. I love what they've put together, but some of the stuff that they put together just doesn't make any sense. But Rich Eisen's was a little bit more realistic, minus, I think, one team. But he went with the Rams at 10 versus the Bills. Now, I could see this. The Rams were 10-7 last year. Of course, they had one playoff loss to the Lions. The Cowboys at 9. Now, they were 11-6 last season. 12-5, sorry. With one loss in the playoffs. Big loss, obviously. And then you had the Jets. Now, this was my surprising one from Rich Eisen. It just like how PFF has the Jets at 4. Like, they don't belong anywhere on this list. But you've got the Jets at 8, 7-10, no playoffs last season. Obviously, we know that it was a house on fire last year between everything that happened. Browns at 7. So this one's also interesting. They were second in the AFC North, 11-6 on the season. They split with the Ravens. They beat the Niners and the Texans in the regular season, and then got blown out by the Texans in the first wild card weekend. The Browns intrigue me. We'll come back to this in a minute. Number 6, they had the Packers. I do believe that the Packers fit in this list, maybe not at 6. Houston at 5. I definitely believe Houston belongs in this list. 5 is probably a good spot. But then the Lions at number 4. I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. Rich Eisen has a lot of love for the Lions. The Lions made several impactful moves between, this offseason and draft. I definitely believe they belong. And then you have the Ravens at 3, the Chiefs at 2, and the Niners at 1. So let's wind it back and let's compare the two lists and kind of put our own list together on what and why you feel or where these teams belong, or if there's anybody else that belongs in this top 10. So right away, what is your gut reaction to a top 10 list right now? If you had one, what would it be?
So my reaction is that the Dallas Cowboys should stop showing up on top 10 lists. I understand the reason, and it is one reason, and it's one reason solely. It is money. Because I believe that the Dallas Cowboys are the most profitable NFL franchise. I think they're, top 3 franchises all of sports. as far as on the Forbes list. So I understand that that's why you put them there. But I feel like it's like the Buffalo Bills. You know, the Buffalo Bills back in the 90s when they went to the 4 straight Super Bowls. After they lost the second one, like the third one, you're like, yeah, I can see that. I'm not surprised. The fourth one, you're like, you know. So it was kind of like Bills fatigue. And I just wonder when the Cowboys are going to get that kind of fatigue, because we already know that Dak is going to have a great regular season. And then they're going to flame out in the playoffs. So that's my first reaction.
So recap number 10. So you feel like the Bills don't belong?
No, I was talking about the Bills of old, comparing them to the Cowboys. How, you know, the Bills of old went to 4 straight Super Bowls. And then, like, after they lost the second Super Bowl, when they lost the third one, it was kind of like, okay, yeah. And then they lost to the fourth one, and it was no surprise, right? It was just kind of like Bills fatigue. Maybe you pulled for them a little bit. You wanted them to win, but you're just like, yeah, get them out of here. They're not real. It's difficult to get to 4 straight Super Bowls.
Well, where do they belong? Where do they belong in 24, though?
This Bills team, they just lost so many players. I don't know how you can put them in the top 10. But who would I replace them with?
It's a tough question. It is a tough question. I think the Bills have a decent squad. To your point, they lost some players.
But then I think they had an addition by subtraction by losing Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
Keon Coleman he's just a fun guy to root for. You just want him to, you know, he's just a regular guy that shops at Macy's, you know, so you just want him to win, you know, you want to root for him. But
wait, Keon Coleman, know.
They also lost.
He went to the Bills?
Yeah, he went to the Bills.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. They also lost Gabe Davis. Yeah. So, like, their receiving core is Keon Coleman and who?
I don't have their roster pulled up. I mean, I didn't do any work on the Bills because they're not in my top 10. But if we look at the Buffalo Bills roster right now, their wide receiver room is looking like this. They got Keon Coleman. They got Chase Claypool back, or they got Chase Claypool, which we know he's a disaster right now. They got KJ Hamler. Don't even know who he is. They got Mac Hollins. I mean, yeah. They got Andy Isabella, Xavier Johnson, Lawrence Keys. So they got a bunch of nobodies, but then you also have Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakir, Tyrell Shavers, Justin Shorter, which he was drafted last year, so he could make a step forward. They got Brian Thompson, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's on. So I mean, they got a couple of decent receivers. I mean, you know, Valdez-Scantling can be a good receiver.
He can also drop a lot of passes.
That's very true. I mean, I guess I wouldn't write off their receiving room just yet. You know, I guess Keon Coleman is going to be the difference, or he's not. You know, I think that's the only way you can look at it. You know, when you look at the running back room, they got James Cook, and who else do they have back there? Darrington Evans, Frank Gore Jr. He should be electric, man. I'm excited to watch him, to be honest with you. Ty Johnson. I mean, Ty Johnson can be electric at times. So, I mean, I wouldn't write him off completely, but do they fit in the top 10 is the question.
I mean, it's Josh Allen and a bunch of guys. And we all know that if Josh Allen is in that situation, Josh Allen is going to put on the cape and he's going to go play hero ball. And when he plays hero ball, he turns the ball over a lot. He turns the ball over a lot anyway. But I feel like he's just going to be in a position where he's going to put his team in a bad position.
So to your point, though, I mean, I get Mahomes is Mahomes, but last season it was Mahomes and some guys, just like you said about the Bills, right? They had Kelsey, which was the only difference.
But that's like, Tom Brady, like Tom Brady. So we talk about Mahomes being the GOAT, right? And I firmly believe, no, wait. He is the GOAT, right? The GOTE, right? He's the greatest of this era.
Sure. I'll give him that. I'll give him the greatest of this era, the last 5 years.
Right. So if he's going to be in the conversation with Tom Brady at some point in the future, possibly seeing, how this stacks up, you expect Mahomes and not just Mahomes, Andy Reid, right? You expect those guys to be able to take receivers who, like Skip Bayless used to say, Tom Brady would go and grab 3 guys from Dorchester just out of the out of the stands, be like, you come play receiver, you and you, right? So you expect that from Patrick Mahomes because you've seen him do it pretty much, and it doesn't matter who their receivers are, he's going to be productive, and mostly it's going to be Travis Kelce, right? That relationship that he has with Kelce supersedes everything, right? So it's just like Travis Kelce and him, they're on a different wavelength. And then there's the other guys that you just have to work into. I mean, look at the guys that he had last year. You didn't think that they would actually win a Super Bowl because they had people like Valdez Scantling and Kadarius Toney out there dropping everything.
Well, their room overall, it was a big point of contention for me in the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract that was looming. Their room overall was under $17 million for the wide receiver room as a whole, everybody, and including Travis Kelce was I think under 27 million combined. And now we have one receiver making 30 million. That's why I had a big gripe with Amon-Ra St. Brown about ready to get paid like that, because I look around at the last 20 years and I did this. I did a show on it. I looked around at the last 20 years of Super Bowl winners. Nobody won a Super Bowl besides the Rams in 2021 with a freshly paid wide receiver making a ass ton of money. So nobody but the Rams. But when you look at the Rams situation, they brought players in like Odell Beckham. That's why their wide receiver room was so expensive. And that's why I was worried, because it just and if numbers speak anything, if history repeats itself, how are the Lions going to win, with this room with one guy that is getting paid? How are we going to supplement? But I know we're kind of getting off on a subject, but that's why I was worried about, that contract. I'm not worried about Amon-Ra. I was just worried, the numbers do mean something somewhere sometimes. So,
but a question I have for you, you said that Kansas City Chiefs room was under 17 million.
Yeah.
What other quarterback is winning a Super Bowl with those guys?
I don't necessarily feel like it was just Mahomes. Like, I think that their defense was a large part of why they started to win games.
Their defense was, but can you plug and play any quarterback in there with those type of receivers?
I mean, I think you can. I think that there's a few quarterbacks in the league that could have that ability. And no, I don't think it's Jared Goff. And the reason why is I think that Jared Goff relies on timing. I do believe that if Jared Goff was thrown into a situation, he would swim without a doubt. But I think, and you're not going to like this, but Matthew Stafford is one of those guys that can take just about anybody and work with them day one. And he proved it last year, with bringing a rookie, 5th round Puka Nacua, and a guy turned into a complete monster. But he's done it throughout his career, even in Detroit. He had to work with less, and get more out of them. And he's just one of those guys. Brady was good at that too. Peyton Manning was great at that. There was very few players that were really good at doing that. And is it Mahomes? I mean, is it him just spread the field with his legs? Who knows? And I know we're kind of getting off topic, but let's go. Let's wind this back to top 10. So you got PFF with the Bills, Rich Eisen with the Rams at 10. Who do you got in at 10? Do you agree with either of them? I look, I'm good with the Rams. I think the Rams make sense here.
I'll go with the Rams, and I'll break bread with you on Matthew Stafford. Never said he was I never said he was a bad quarterback, right? But he's just bad at throwing pick sixes when the game was on the line. That, if you remove those pick sixes, then I've got no problem with Matthew Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, I could make an argument for some of those, but yeah, they were untimely. The thing
here's
is,
a name.
He was pushing the fourth quarter. That's why.
Here's a name for you to remember. And remember that this man is no longer in the NFL. Jaquiski Tart.
Who?
Jaquiski Tart.
Never heard of him.
Oh, you heard of him. It was the drop heard around the world. San Francisco 49ers safety. NFC Championship game. Matthew Stafford hits him in the numbers. And he dropped it. And he's not been signed since. He has not been signed since. He is completely out of the league.
I don't
remember. He might be
that.
in the UFL. He might be in the UFL, but he hit him in the numbers like he was wearing Rams colors.
Yeah, you can't do that. Can't do that. All right, so I'm going to go Rams at 10. So like I said, Los Angeles Rams made several strategic moves during the 2024 offseason to bolster their roster and improve their overall team performance. Here are some of the key improvements from 2024 so far. Offensive line enhancements. The Rams signed Jonah Jackson from the Detroit Lions, significantly strengthening their offensive line. This move allows Steve Avila, who I really liked Steve last year. I was really hoping the Lions were going to take him last year, to move to the center position, which is his natural position, where he is expected to excel right away. Additionally, they re-signed standout guard Kevin Dotson, ensuring stability and experience. Oh, you lost your green screen there. Ensuring stability and experience on the interior line. Defensive upgrades. The Rams made significant upgrades to their secondary by signing safety Cameron Curl and cornerbacks Tre'Davious White and Darius Williams. These additions aim to fortify their pass defense, which was a critical need last year. Draft success in 2024, the Rams focused on strengthening their defensive front. They used their first round pick on edge rusher Jared Verse, who is somebody you guys know from some of my videos and conversations, that really high on this guy. I think that he's going to be an incredible addition to the Rams this year. Does he jump off the page right away? We don't know. Who he's projected to be a top candidate, for defensive rookie of the year. I believe that. They also traded up in the second round to acquire defensive lineman Braden Fisk, who's an absolute animal. His measurables didn't stack up against some of the better ones, but he is somebody that I expect to be utilized in their pass rushing situations. Overall, those two guys are going to have to make up for the loss of Aaron Donald. Overall roster improvements, though, with the additional cap space from Aaron Donald's departure, the Rams managed to make impactful signings across both offense and defense. They addressed crucial needs by acquiring high potential players in free agency and the draft, leading to a very strong offseason grade from all those moves. Collectively, this positions the Rams to be more competitive in the upcoming season. I do believe that this is kind of the make or break season for Matthew Stafford. And does he continue? Does he continue moving forward, at his age and where he's at in life? Is he going to play out the rest of his contract? Is he going to hang it up early? We'll see. But I think the Rams firmly at 10 are definitely one of the best teams going into this season. I think that their offense is going to be even better this year. Defense was the issue for them last year, and they made some significant improvements. To kind of recap and wrap on Mahomes real quick, though, I want to throw this out there. I don't see Mahomes being a 20-year man. I don't even know if I see him being a 10-year, maybe, or going more than 10 years. So he was brought into the league in what, 16, 15, 16, somewhere in that area. So I don't know that Mahomes, gets another contract outside of the one that he has right now.
Which is like 80 years.
Oh, yeah, right. I think that he plays it out potentially, but I think that he's going to hang it up sometime probably before 11th season. I think that he might put in his 10 and be done. 10 is a very long time in the NFL. He's accomplished a lot. I just don't know if I read the tea leaves here that he is a guy that is going to just continue to play. Like Brady was a different type of an animal. Peyton, I mean, all of these guys played lengthy careers, different type of an animal. I don't know if I see that same drive in Mahomes. I just, especially when you see him show up to camp with a dad bod, doesn't speak to me like he's all invested, like he just thinks like he's just going to get it done. We'll see how long that attitude lasts. When you get older, things start to fall apart, Patrick. So, number 9.
Well, the one thing that I would say about that is I think losing a couple of years, then you'll see what kind of character he has, like not getting to the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. And then you'll see if he rededicates himself.
Yeah. And I think that's the point. You know, they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. And you know, sorry, no three-peat. And that's going to change things because Kelsey's probably going to retire. He's going to go, elope with Taylor Swift. I think they're having a baby, or at least it's been spoken about. Rumors, I should say, allegedly, bun in the oven. Anyway, number 9, Cowboys. Do you believe the Cowboys belong at number 9? I think you firmly stated they didn't, but PFF has them at number 9, and so does Rich Eisen. So if I were to break down the Cowboys quickly, draft strategy. The Cowboys entered the 2024 draft with clear needs, particularly on the offensive line and defensive front. They addressed these by drafting high potential players like Tyler Guyton, offensive tackle from Oklahoma, who's expected to provide immediate impact and long-term stability on the offensive line. And defensive line reinforcements, they used early round picks to enhance their defensive capabilities, drafting defensive tackle Marshawn Nealand, who a lot of us loved here for the Detroit Lions, from Western Michigan anyway, to bolster their pass rush and run defense, addressing a significant weakness. Last season, they took Mazi Smith, who did not have a wonderful rookie season, expecting a lot more from him this season. So I think you're going to have a resurgence along this defensive line with Mazi Smith, the addition of Marshawn Nealand. I think that really amplifies what their defense is going to be able to do. I mean, clearly they still have players like Micah Parsons, right? And other players that make this defense kind of scary. Offensive line has always been an issue, it feels like, for the Cowboys, and they always seem to address the offensive line too. I think that's one thing that the Cowboys do well, is they do address the two fronts of their defense often and offense often. Cap management for them, they did navigate some cap constraints. Despite being projected over the salary cap, the Cowboys managed their finances carefully. Obviously, there's a pending issue with Dak's contract. He's getting a bunch of money this year, like $60 million. He did not get an extension. They did not, work anything out. He's essentially playing on his final year. Their strategic restructuring of some contracts freed up some cap space for them to make a few things happen. The combined effect of these moves, though, strategic resignings, targeted free agent acquisitions, and focused draft strategy, potentially has positioned the Cowboys to be more competitive in 2024. They did address some critical areas of need, improve their depth, and ensured continuity in key positions. These improvements reflect a well-rounded approach to team building. So I hate saying all that positive crap about the Cowboys. I want to puke now. So Cowboys look at number 9. I don't know if you can deny it. As much as I don't want them to be there, they have a pretty solid team. It's which Dak is going to show up. I think that's the question for the Cowboys.
I think there's another thing that you're forgetting. There's two things, right? When you talk about the cap implications that they have, CeeDee Lamb is holding out because
is he already holding out this offseason?
Yep.
Okay.
He stayed away from mandatory minicamp, so he's holding out. And then we have the other situation with Dan Quinn no longer being in the building. Who is replacing him? And is he going to be as good as Dan Quinn as a defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see CeeDee Lamb will get a deal. I don't think, he'll get a deal. I don't think it's going to go beyond training camp here. Like, I think that he'll probably get a deal before the month of June is out. If the Cowboys want to compete this year, they're going to have to pay the guy. The question is, do they have the money to pay him? So Cowboys roster, let's take a look and see who's on this roster real quick. But I mean, overall, I mean, do you feel like they belong in the top 10? I mean, put your personal feelings aside, for the team itself, where do you think they belong?
Here's the question. Top 10 to do what?
It's early June predictions to win the Super Bowl. Top 10 teams to win the Super Bowl and kind of where they line up right now in an order to win the Super Bowl this year.
I don't think that they're top 10 simply because it's just until they show that they are, then they shouldn't be. Just like the Lions. The Lions didn't get any respect until they showed that they should get respect. So I don't really feel like so they brought in 2 rookies, right? They've got Marshawn Nealand and not 2 rookies, Marshawn Nealand and hopefully Mozzie Smith.
On the defense, yeah.
He steps up. But they had Randy Gregory, who, whatever you want to say about his issues with marijuana or whatever, he's still a pretty good player. So is Marshawn Nealand going to be better than Randy Gregory? Is Mozzie Smith going to be better than Randy Gregory? Is he still there, or didn't he go somewhere else?
Randy Gregory?
Yeah.
I don't think he's still on the team. But, at the same token here, I mean, you can't count out Marshawn Nealand. I mean, that dude's an absolute monster of a man. Like, he could be that, that tier 2 guy that, bumped up in the draft this year that could get significant playing time and pop off the page. I mean, you could see it happen. The problem that I see with the Cowboys right now is they only have about $12 million in available cap space. So that does hinder the opportunity to sign CeeDee Lamb. But as well as I do, these fugazi of contracts that they are, I mean, they can make it happen. I mean, they can give him all the money next year and just get him signed to a contract this year. It could happen.
They'll have $100 million in space tomorrow. Watch.
Yeah, right. So they still have Ezekiel Elliott. Yeah. They got Trayvon Diggs at cornerback. What I miss?
They re-signed the corpse of Ezekiel Elliott. That does not move the needle. That does not move the needle at all.
They got Eric Kendricks at linebacker. Marshawn Nealand. CeeDee Lamb, he'll come back. Hey, they got Trey Lance in case, Dak Prescott can't go. They got DeMarcus Lawrence, Jordan Lewis at corner.
They still have Deron Bland.
They picked up this linebacker from Notre Dame, Marist Liufau, however you pronounce his name. I don't really know anything about him. They got Osa at defensive tackle. Micah Parsons, obviously. Yeah, they got Micah Parsons, outside linebacker. So they still have some players, right? I mean, they still got some dogs on this team. Mozzie Smith, Tyler Smith. On the offensive side of the ball.
But what about that scheme? What's the defensive scheme going to be? Who's their defensive coordinator?
I have no idea who the defensive coordinator is. So where do you put them? In or out of the top 10? You got Mike Zimmer, so I think they're fine.
All right. So for Mike Zimmer, I'll put him at 10. I don't want I don't want him at 10. I don't want him in the top 10. I don't think they should be there.
So
they've got to show it to me, man.
The exercise is this: if you don't want him in, you don't put him in.
But who else do you put in there?
That's the question. What other teams are making this list? What other teams are relevant right now? So let's pull up the NFL 32 teams here.
No.
Miami Dolphins. You got the Miami Dolphins in there?
They're not in there?
No, they're not on this list.
Yeah, I would put the Dolphins in over the Cowboys.
as funny as it may be, the Eagles are not even in this list.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, that's crazy.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, all teams are available here, but they're not on this list by Rich Eisen. So, like I said, there's a couple of teams in here that I maybe don't agree with or I agree with, but there could be better teams. So you've still got Miami to think about. You've got the Eagles to think about.
So the Eagles, for me, the issue with the Eagles is how are those coordinators going to mesh with Sirianni? Because the hires that he made last year were not any good. I mean, he brought in Matt Patricia, for God's sakes. Like, why would you do that? They lost their quarterback of the offensive line in Jason Kelsey. Lane Johnson is old as mess. Well, not old, but he's very injured. But so that's the issue. Like, what is their offensive line going to look like to help to bolster that offense?
So Eagles offensive line.
Yeah.
I don't remember who the new center is, but didn't they pick up a new center this year?
Well, they had to, unless they promoted someone from who was his backup.
They brought in Cam Jurgens. So Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska, he was their round 2 pick of last year. So they expected this to happen. So he obviously has been playing under, Kelsey. He could be pretty good. I mean, he's round 2, pick number 51 overall. So let's just assume that there's no let off with the center position. They still have a pretty high power.
Some let off.
They still have a pretty high powered offense.
Okay.
Defensively, I'm not sure if they've gotten better or worse.
Well, they're on their third coordinator in a year, because they had Sean Desai. Yeah, they had Sean Desai, then they had Matt Patricia, and now whoever the new guy is.
So Rick says, don't sleep on the Chargers. They have a competent coach this season. I think you misspelled competent wrong. I don't know that Harbaugh is competent. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Chargers. But you're darn right, man. The Chargers, you can't sleep on them. It just how quickly does that ship turn with Harbaugh at the helm? So I mean, that is the interesting point here. Again, let me review this. You've got the PFF. Bills, Cowboys, Bengals, Texans, Lions, Ravens, Jets, Eagles, Chiefs, 49ers. Bengals, sorry, out. Jets, sorry, out. Yeah. The Eagles are on that list, but I would not put in the Bengals and I would not put in the Jets over Miami or potentially over Cleveland. And I know Cleveland is I hate this Deshaun Watson. I hate's a strong word. I dislike Deshaun Watson and all that he represents, but you can't deny their defense and you can't deny what they've done on the offensive side of the ball. If he can just come in and play, even at a better than average clip, the Browns are pretty darn dangerous. So I think that the Browns are interesting.
So my thing with the Browns is because of the uncertainty, at some point it feels like Watson doesn't want to play football anymore. It feels like he just got that contract and he's just kind of resting on his laurels. He's looked bad. He doesn't look like he's rededicated himself. And then the injury was strange as well, right? It was like a shoulder injury and he's telling people he's going to play next week. And then next thing you know, he's out for the season.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but it's the question that I have with the Browns is if they have that quarterback carousel, how long can Kevin Stefanski keep like juggling quarterbacks and winning 11 games? You know what I mean? So that instability just worries me about the Browns. The Dolphins, I would definitely put the Dolphins above the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are in flux right now, right? So I feel like the Dolphins have they're just more stable, man. And I think that they're a dangerous team. We all know that running game, passing game. They're gonna get Bradley Chubb back, I believe. Do you remember when he was injured? Was it like late in the season or early in the season?
I don't remember with Chubb.
I feel like it was late.
I'm not real sure.
Yeah. They lost Van Ginkel to the Vikings. So I'm not sure who they signed to. I know they signed somebody because they also lost Wilkins. Was Christian Wilkins playing for them last season?
Yeah, he was. They lost him too. So they lost him. They lost a lot on the defensive side of the ball. So as far as Bradley Chubb, though, I wouldn't think that Bradley Chubb is going to be a factor. We know that when you come back from an ACL, it's very difficult to even play in your first season. And even when you do come back, it's going to take 4 or 5 games before you even feel comfortable again. And, for most players, I think that's, fairly consistent. So I'm not going to give Bradley Chubb, the saving grace of the team this year. But here's where I'm going to go. So Rams at 10, I'm comfortable with that. As much as I dislike the Cowboys, I've got to leave them at 9. And I mean, I would actually probably put the Rams ahead of the Cowboys there, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to let it ride. That's why we're doing this in June. It's the way too early June predictions. And then after training camp, we'll have it again. So Jets at 8, though. So this is where I start to have a problem. PFF has the Jets in as the 4th best team ahead of the Detroit Lions. Clearly, everybody over at PFF smokes something that is not natural. But I had to. Allegedly. But the Jets at 8. Synthetics. Yeah, the Jets at 8. Again, you got a guy coming back off an ACL that thought he was going to be able to come back last season. Didn't happen. I don't think that Aaron Rodgers is the saving grace of the Jets. I think the Jets are a very good team, but I think that you need a very good quarterback who Aaron Rodgers used to be. I don't think he's the same man anymore. I definitely don't think he's the same quarterback. He still has a heck of an arm, and he can throw any pass, that exists on the passing tree, if you want to call it that. But I don't believe that they belong at 8. Miami Dolphins, I feel like they've lost too much on the defensive side of the ball to throw them in at 8. The Bengals, I think that they're a crapshoot no matter what to throw them in at 8. So who do I put in at 8? That's where I'm going to put the Chargers. So even though the Chargers have a lot of what ifs, right? We just don't know. Harbaugh is kind of a weird guy. You hear it all the time, even from his players at Michigan, that he's just weird. He's odd. People will sit down and have a conversation with him, and he doesn't talk to you. He just sits there, just looks around the room, like no conversation at all, but yet he called you into the office. So how does that translate back to the NFL after coaching college kids? Is he going to go in and be able to, talk to grown men differently than he was talking to college kids? That, I think, is his only hiccup this year. Is he going to be able to make that transition in year 1? Is it going to take him a minute to kind of readjust and reacclimate to the NFL? He was there, for a few seasons. Obviously, he coached the Niners, led him to a Super Bowl, I believe, right, where they lost. I feel like if the Chargers have an opportunity, it's because of their rosters, not so much of Harbaugh. And I do like their quarterback. So I'm going to put the Chargers in 8. I'm going to drop the Jets out. But let's talk about the Jets for a moment. So the New York Jets have made several significant improvements during the 2024 offseason and draft to strengthen their roster. Offensive line upgrades. The Jets signed veteran tackle Tyron Smith and traded for right tackle Morgan Moses. These moves are aimed at providing better protection for Aaron Rodgers and stabilizing an offensive line that struggled mightily last season. Despite concerns about their age, though, and injury history, both players bring in a wealth of experience and skill to the team. Wide receiver addition, the Jets acquired wide receiver Mike Williams, who is expected to be a major asset in their passing game. But Williams is coming off of an ACL, much like Aaron Rodgers, was seen as a bargain at $15 million. I can't believe players are getting that kind of money after an ACL. His presence alongside Garrett Wilson, though, forms a formidable receiving duo for Rodgers in 2024. Defensive reinforcements, the Jets signed defensive lineman Javon Kinlaw on a one-year prove-it deal. Although Kinlaw has not really lived up to his first-round potential, the Jets are hopeful that he can add depth and performance on their defensive front. Draft success, though. So they did bring in some more offensive line help to pair up with the elder statesman Olu Fashanu. The Jets used their 11th overall pick to draft Olu Fashanu from Penn State. Fashanu is expected to be a long-term solution on the offensive line. I do believe he does get to start week 1. We'll see where that progresses through training camp. Key draft picks, though, besides Fashanu, the Jets also focused on other critical areas by selecting wide receiver Malachi Corey, who is expected to contribute significantly to this offense. Maybe not so much outside of their top 2 duo, but that is a insurance policy for Mike Williams, at least. And then they also brought in quarterback Michael Pratt in the 3rd round to develop as a future starter. I'm not so high on that one. Cap management, obviously they had limited cap space. Rodgers' contract is not small, but they lost some important players. Bryce Huff had left in the free agency period, but they did bring in Hassan Reddick. Is this a 1-for-1 trade-off? I'm not real sure yet. Subtractions for additions, kind of like what you said earlier. The Jets traded away quarterback Zach Wilson as a move seen as kind of a benefit for both parties. This allowed the team to clear up some cap space and kind of refocus their development on new talent at backup positions. Overall impact this year, I believe that the combined effect of these moves positions the Jets to be more competitive in 2024. They've addressed some weaknesses on the offensive line. They've added some depth to the defensive front. They've enhanced the receiving core. The Jets have significantly bolstered their chances of a successful season. But how successful is the question? I'm not buying it. I'm selling the Jets. I'm going to put the Jets at number 11. So they're going to fall outside the top 10. And I've got the Chargers sliding in at number 8, ahead of the Cowboys and ahead of the Rams, which is crazy. I know, but I'm going to roll with it. On to number 7. Number 7 by Rich Eisen is the Browns. So we started talking about the Browns a little bit. Do you believe that they belong here?
No, because of Deshaun Watson.
If they don't belong here, who belongs at number 7 for you?
So since we're doing hot takes, I'm going to put the Falcons at number 7.
Ooh.
I'm going to put the Falcons at number 7, but it's kind of contradictory. But it's not, okay? So I agree with you that the Jets should be out and they should be at 11 because I don't think that Aaron Rodgers, his mobility was part of his game. And I think he's going to be a little bit gun shy. I mean, it's natural. You've torn an Achilles. You're going to be gun shy about taking off. So that just half a second or a split second of hesitation, I think that's going to get him sacked more often than not. He's not going to be able to get out of the pocket like he used to. But with Kirk Cousins, that wasn't really his game. He can run, he can take off a little bit, but he did it far less than Aaron Rodgers. I think he's got a wealth of pass catchers down there, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Also, they got rid of Arthur Smith. Who, for the life of me, I can't understand how you are a quote unquote offensive head coach and you can't figure out how to use a physical freak like Kyle Pitts. That one I don't understand. So I think Kyle Pitts is going to be more freed up. Bijan Robinson is still an excellent back. And their defense isn't half bad either. So I'm going to put them there. If Kirk Cousins goes down, you got Michael Penix. who will probably also go down right after Kirk Cousins. so the third string quarterback in Atlanta is going to be the most popular one there. But yeah, I think that I would be comfortable putting the Falcons up there at number 7.
So it's not and just so everybody knows, I've got to jump off here in about 10 minutes, so I might not get through this list. We can get through it kind of quickly. So you've got the Falcons at 7. Look, as much as I want to agree with that,
I just don't trust Deshaun, man. I just don't trust his effect on that team.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Deshaun Watson has been a huge liability. So my question is this. I've been saying that the Arizona Cardinals are going to be the 2024 Texans of 23. I think that the Cardinals have an opportunity here to make a big jump in 2024. I don't believe it's a big enough jump to be even considered a top 10 Super Bowl candidate. So I'm going to have to stick with the teams that, probably have the most opportunity, based on, who they have on the team. Even though it's potentially just one player that kind of throws a cog in their wheel, being Deshaun Watson. Who's the backup for the Browns? It's not Flacco, is it?
Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston. Yeah, see, he's no better. It's a tough one. I mean, you're kind of running out of real estate here because the Pittsburgh Steelers are a bunch of nobodies. The Vikings are going to be all over the map. I don't believe that the Cincinnati Bengals have done enough to be relevant. The Chicago Bears, if they get 5 wins this year, I'd be happy for them. The Washington Commanders, I mean, haven't done enough. They've been bottom feeders. I don't see it. So I'm going to have to go with the Eagles. I'm putting the Eagles at 7. I understand that they've had some difficulty, but you just can't count out Jalen or Hurts. You can't count out what they've done on the offensive side of the ball. They've stayed relatively good on the defensive side of the ball as well. So I'm going to leave the Eagles in at number 7, and I'm going to replace the Browns. I'm going to replace the Browns with the Eagles. That's what I'm doing.
I thought they were I thought they were higher on the list.
PFF has them at number 3.
Oh, okay. PFF. Okay.
Yeah, Rich Eisen has the Eagles off the list completely.
Okay. All right.
So I'm going to put the Eagles in at number 7. I'm going to bounce the Browns, even though I feel like they've got a good squad. It's just that one cog in the wheel, and I really don't like what Deshaun Watson's done. So for those reasons, I'm going to leave them out. So next up, number 6, your Green Bay Packers. Do they belong? Did they do enough last year? Well, according to Trevor Sikkema, only 8 games mattered last year, and that was the last 8 games for the Packers. Nothing mattered prior to that. And for that reason, Jordan Love is the next coming of Jesus Aaron Rodgers. So I don't see it. I think the Packers have too many questions, but they did make several moves this offseason, and we'll talk about that right now. So key retentions and or signings. Packers retained defensive back Keeson Nixon, targeted safety Geno Stone in free agency, and strengthened their secondary. They signed Xavier McKinney, right, to safety position.
Yeah.
We should improve their pass defense overall.
Mm-hmm.
They did address the defensive line. They acquired Maurice Hurst and Shelby Harris. Again, we'll have to double check this information because I pulled this offline. I did not have a chance to fact check this one. Additionally, the Packers let go defensive coordinator Joe Barry and are focusing on retooling their defensive strategy, which should help address some of the key issues they faced last season. Their offensive line, in my opinion, was their biggest problem last year. Draft success, though, they focused on, addressing offensive line, tackled Jordan Morgan in the first round, obviously aiming to give better protection for Jordan Love. Despite some concerns, though, Morgan does bring some athleticism and potential to the offensive line. In the second round, they took Kalen Bullock, right? In second round, USC, another safety.
Yeah, I know they took a bunch of defensive backs.
Yeah, so then they picked Javon Bullard to help their secondary. filling a significant need again. Bullard is versatile and expected to contribute in multiple positions. Edgerrin Cooper and Tyron Hopper were added to the linebacker core, aiming to bring more depth and talent to the defensive unit. Overall impact: the Packers' offseason moves reflect a balanced approach to strengthening both their offense and defense by focusing on retaining key players, making strategic free agent signings, and addressing crucial needs through the draft. The Packers are set up to build on their 9-8 season and improve their performance in the upcoming year. Do they belong? When I look at the rest of the league and I look at who's hot, who's not, right? I mean, who's got a good team? Who doesn't? The Packers have a pretty solid team. I still believe that Jordan Love is a bit of a wild card. I think that he had some success last year. I think that he also had some major failures. He is kind of like my Dak Prescott, for the Green Bay Packers. Like, which Jordan Love is going to show up? When he is under pressure, he is complete trash. When he has some time, he can thread the ball. So I'm 50-50 on whether Jordan Love is even going to get a bigger contract after what he's on a 1-year deal right now, right? He got a small extension,
which it doesn't want to play on.
Right. He got a small extension. He's going to play, but he got a small extension to get through this season, I believe. Mm-hmm. Do the Packers belong at number 6? Do they belong ahead of the Eagles? Do they belong ahead of, the Jets, the Cowboys, the Rams? I'm not as high on them as PFF is, putting them. Where did PFF? No, PFF left them out, didn't they? PFF left the Packers off the list.
What?
Yep, they left the
not
Packers
PFF.
off. Yeah, I'm surprised, right? They left the Packers off the list, but Rich Eisen has them in there at number 6. And I'm gonna go ahead and agree, because the next 5 teams clearly, are the best teams in the league. Quickly, where are you at on the Packers?
With the Packers, I mean, I don't know if I put them over the Eagles because they're just, it's another youth movement, and that youth movement on offense last year in the first 9 games was a complete disaster. They have a new defensive coordinator, and they have a bunch of rookies learning a new scheme and getting to the NFL. So it just depends on how quickly that will mesh together. And then again, Jordan Love, I don't know why people don't think that it's possible that he could have a sophomore slump, because last year was his first year starting. So I don't know if I would put them above the Eagles right now. I'm definitely going to say that the Eagles are more established. So I'm going to keep the Eagles above the Packers.
So you've got the Eagles above the Packers, but you have the Eagles right now in at 6?
You have them at 7, right?
Yeah, I have them at 7. So where are you putting the Packers at 7 and the Eagles at 6?
I had the Falcons at 7.
Yeah, you had the Falcons. So I don't have your stuff written down, so I don't know.
So I'll put the Eagles at 6. Number 8, I don't even know if I had a number 8.
So number 8, I had removed the Jets and put in the Chargers.
Okay, you put in the Chargers. So I'll put the Packers in at 9, and I will remove the Cowboys.
Oh, I'm cool with that. I mean,
I'm gonna swap them. I'm gonna put the Packers in at 10. I will move the Rams up to 9, and I'm gonna kick the Cowboys out.
All right, I like it, but I'm gonna stick with what I'm going with here. So I've got the Chargers in at 8. I've got the Eagles in at 7 over the Browns. I'm gonna leave the Packers where they are at 6. I think that's a good spot. They're not a top 5 team. I do believe that they're a good team. I just believe that they have some key pieces here if Jordan Love can wake up. I've got a bounce here in 1 minute, so we'll come back to this. But the top 5, Houston in at 5, I believe they belong there. Lions at 4, Ravens at 3, Chiefs at 2, Niners at 1. Here's where I'm going to mix it up. You guys are going to think I'm crazy. But I am going to go ahead and drop. I'm going to leave the Houstons at 5. I'm going to leave Houston Texans at 5. I'm going to drop the Chiefs to 4. I'm going to move the Lions to 3. And then the Ravens and the Niners, I'm going to swap. I'm going to put the Ravens at number 1, the Niners at number 2 for right now. That's where I'm at. We'll come back to this and revisit it again this week. Tomorrow morning, we'll finish the list. You guys have an excellent day. Chef, thank you for joining me. If you want to come on tomorrow to finish the list, feel free.
I'll do that.
But I've got to jump on an appointment right now. And you guys have a wonderful day. Go Lions. Go One Pride. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning. Take care. Bye-bye.